to make something like this happen really takes a great deal of effort by everyone. Not only those who are at this end trying to put things together, but also people at the other end who are coming long distances and trying to organize things. And I think we've just witnessed a major accomplishment now. Nigel and Brian have put up the family tree, and gosh, I didn't think it was going to fit. But this is wonderful. Now let's give them a We're going to spend great times going over that over the next few days, and I'm sure we're never going to get through it. And I guess we've got to decide then what the next step is. But we really thank you, Nigel and Brian, for all the effort you put into this, and Mary and Becky and Joan and everyone else who contributed to this. It really is a major accomplishment, and I thank you all for what you've done. I also want to acknowledge and thank Frank and Gail and Bill and Aunt Mary and Brian and Patty and all of their families for the tremendous amount of time and effort they've put into organizing this. It's really a result of all of their efforts. And I should also tell you, we've really stuck you pretty good for this bus trip tomorrow. It's going to be $20 a head, I think, to pay for the bus. But that's all you're going to spend this weekend. So I think we can be thankful for that as well, for the generosity of everyone around here who contributed to that. We thank them for that. I wanted to just quickly tell you what was going to happen. You've all got here's Diana. Thank you, Diana. She makes great fun. By the way, for those of you driving back to Lloydminster tonight too, between here and the river, there's a pretty good chance you're going to see deer. So drive carefully, watch out for them. At nighttime is particularly bad. Tomorrow morning we're going to have breakfast starting somewhere around 8 o'clock, so between 8 and 9:30 we'll have, Nigel will have a chuck wagon breakfast. Nigel said, what's a chuck wagon breakfast? I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Brian and Frank are in charge, and that'll be interesting in itself.
I'm hoping to up earlier than they did today.
Then the bus should be here. We want to get off by about 10 o'clock, and we're going to go to my grandfather, John, and Uncle Charles' home place, my Uncle Charlie's homestead, to see where that farm was. And if you look in, we're going to put up farm pictures here. You'll see the old farmhouse that Grandpa John and Uncle Charlie and Grandma Martha lived in. Then we're going to my dad's homestead where Frank and Bill and I grew up. And then we're off to historic Fort Pitt. Now if you look down here, there's a painting on the seats there of the Fort Pitt back in the 1880s, I would guess, prior to the Northwest Rebellion. It was pretty much burned to the ground there. Rebellion. But we're going there. There's a Hutterite colony right next to it if we have time. We will drive through it at least for those of you who aren't familiar with Hutterite colonies and those who want to know about it. Our brother John, a former Hutterite, can tell you all about Hutterite colonies. So corner him and ask him about it. Then we're off to Frenchman Butte. Now my dad was very involved with the development of the museum in Frenchman Butte, and we're going to spend some time there. We're also going to have lunch. The ladies are going to put sandwiches together and whatnot, and we'll probably get tea and coffee down there. They just simply ask that you make a donation to the museum. So you drop a free will offering in the pot, and so be it. About 2:30, I would guess, we want to get back on the bus and head out to the rest of the historic tour, Frenchman Butte Hill, and then on to the rifle pits beyond Frenchman Butte Hill. Tomorrow night, we're back here for Hip of Beef. And Nigel is going to show us a PowerPoint presentation on the family tree and the things that he has been able to find with the help of all of the other people I've mentioned before. And then it's going to be a bit of a social evening. Sunday breakfast, same time between 8 and 9:30. About 10:30, we're going to the All Saints Anglican Church down the road here. Our family's been involved with for years and years. And Danny Huckalak is going to lead the devotional service. We're going to have readings. I think we're going to have some music, Patty, are we?
Yes, I might.
We're going to have some music, and then we will also have the opportunity to visit the cemetery where my mother is buried, my grandfather, my uncle, my grandmother, and lots of other relatives, but those are most pertinent to Mapletofts. Then back here for lunch. Sunday afternoon, we're going to have a bit of a social time, sports, neighbors and friends, relatives on the other sides of our families in the neighborhood here are going to come and visit us. We'll have dinner with them on Sunday night. And then for a lot of you, I guess we'll be saying goodbye. On Monday, we'll have breakfast again here, and then that'll be pretty much it. I was hoping tonight that we might take this opportunity for each of us to kind of introduce our families. We're all wearing name tags, and certainly these are important for identifying who's who. It even gets more complicated when you start thinking about where we fit together back, and maybe this is going to help, and Nigel's going to help us tomorrow night. But I wonder if we could take this opportunity right now just to enter one person from each family to introduce themselves and the other people in their family. Would that be a reasonable thing to do? And let me start off. My name is Reuben. My son John is here. My wife Janet is at a high school reunion in Yorkton tonight. She's driving back tomorrow. My son David is working today, so she's going to pick him up in Saskatoon, and they're going to be here tomorrow night. So it'll be myself, John, and David and Jan. Frank?
Well, my wife Gail is right here. I have a son, Shane and Justin, that are coming from Calgary. We moved to Calgary from this area in 1991. We've been in Calgary ever since. My one son works for Trans-Canada Power, and of course, I don't know, the other one is back playing hockey now here in Canada, or North America, I guess, after all the strikes they had, so he's back and got a job again, so he's the one that plays hockey. But they'll be here hopefully sometime tonight. So I guess that's about everything I've got to say.
Bill or Diane?
Hello, I'm Diana, the husband, no, I'm the wife of Bill. We just farm just straight across the field over here, and you're certainly welcome to come to the yard and visit us there. My oldest daughter just came, Sherry Lynn Mapletoft Sawzell. She's married to her husband named Barry, and they, Sawzell, yes, her husband Barry Sawzell. They farm, and 10 minutes out north of Paradise Hill. Both of them are in the oil patch as well. Sherry works for an oil company. Her husband works as a contractor. They've got 3 children. Kelly put his hand up. He's 11. Robin is 9. Madison, our flower girl, is 3. They just came back from the lake as well. They were at the lake for swimming lessons, and if anybody knows the weather was around here, it was not much fun. It was cold and rainy, and today, of course, was the best day. Jason is here, our oldest son. Jason is single. Jason works in the oil patch. Jason works in the oil patch in wintertime, and he also does custom work for cattle people, and right now he's on the farm until this coming fall. The next in line is Tyler and Rebecca, and they aren't here yet? Okay, Tyler and Rebecca got married 2 weeks ago on the 16th of July. So we're going to have a wedding dance with them tomorrow night. They both work in Lloydminster. Tyler is a rancher like Jason and works in the oil patch as well. He works for Husky Sand Caverns. And Rebecca is a vet tech and she works in Lloydminster.
They live at my dad's old place, right down at the corner, turn right, quarter of a mile. The farmstead on the south side of the road is where Tyler and Rebecca
They've
live.
got all the rail fencing.
Just
And the
thrilled
Canada
that they have
flags.
taken over Dad's place.
So the next in line would be Bryce Aaron. Bryce is in Calgary going to university. He should be here about 10:30 tonight. He's bringing his girlfriend Kim and her daughter Savannah. And after Bryce comes Cole. Well, there you go. Cole is single. Yeah. Not looking too hard, but I think he's single. He's going to Vermilion College. He's taking conservation and reclamation, conservation, and petroleum. I think I forget. Anyhow, he's on his second year, and that's our family.
Very good.
I said Bill. I'm wife Bill.
Okay.
Actually, I'm the husband
John,
Bill.
would you introduce yourself?
This could take a while. I'm actually born Hutterite. I was born in Rutherford. I moved to Camrose. From there I moved to Ripstone, and from there I come up to here. I joined the Mapletoft clan. I can't remember what year it was, but the one thing that was struck me very, very nice, and this old Margaret Mapletoft, when my daughter was born, she phoned Chris one day and asked, and that's one thing I should have done, is I should have introduced my family, which are not here, and that's Chris, my wife, and she's working at Curves in St. Paul, and my daughter is traveling back from Lacombe, and they're all going to be here tomorrow, so I'll personally come around and introduce them. But going on to my story is that Margaret phoned up one day and asked Chris if she could adopt my daughter as a great-grandchild, and we said, why couldn't you? And since then, I've been a Mapletoft, and Edgar's done more to my family as a grandchild than everybody has. And so does Aunt Mary and everybody else here. We just love you guys, and we wouldn't be without you. I'm sure you get more out of me as the day goes on. Right now, that's all I'm going to say. Thanks, everybody.
Dad, Edgar is in the seniors home in St. Walbert. He's suffering Alzheimer's. Aunt Mary was over to see him yesterday, and he really was having a very good day. She's going to give it a try tomorrow, and if he's feeling up to it, she's going to get him over for an hour or so. So hopefully he's going to be up to it, and you'll have a chance to see him. Aunt Mary, how do you want to go about your plan? Brian can sell snow to Eskimos.
Being I'm the quiet one of the family, they don't get me into the talking. I'm Brian Huckelak, son of Mary and Margaret Mapletoft Hushalak, married to Adolf Hutzelak. This kid, I don't know what he calls himself, one of my nephews. So if you don't think it's a confusing outfit, think again. We're the other side of the family with the wrong name. It's Mapletoft / Huckelak, Hutzelak, Hushalak, whatever you want to call us. There's a large bunch of us here. Hell, I don't even know them all. So what we'll try to do is go through the order. I think he probably meant Aunt Mary, Mother Mary, Grandma Mary, Great-Grandmother Mary, and Jesus just Mary. Over here, have you met him yet? Oh yeah. This is Huckelak. For some of us, we just call him Dad. We didn't know what Ad meant, so we added a D to it. He's really Adolf. And he spells his name a couple of different ways too, so depending what he's wearing on his name tag tonight, we'll call him Adolf with a PH. I'm married, I'm Brian, the oldest. I usually don't say that because Iona's not here. I have a sister that's only slightly a year younger than me, so I'm going to say she's the oldest. She's got gray hair. I don't have any gray hair, as you can tell. Not like some of the other folks here. But I'm Brian, and I'm married. This lady right over here that was probably cutting meat and doing stuff, Gloria. We've been married for, I don't know, at least 20 years now. I'd like to introduce you to my son, Terry. He's 33. And his wife, Linda, is probably chasing a pair of twins out there. I want to tell you a story about Terry. He's a loser. And why I mean that, all of my other, if you look at the Mapletofts, Jace, Justin, all the boys, right? One girl. So I figured that's pretty good genes. I go out and have a boy and a girl. Oldest son, not a bad looker, good looking woman he's married to. The first girl is called Vic, but she's actually Victoria. The second one's right here is Jody. The third one's right here, we call her Sam, still looking for a boy, Samantha. The last two are twins. And what really makes them a loser, they're not even identical. That's my side of the family. We have a daughter, Brianna. I've got a grandson, thank God for that. Jody was getting tired of being my grandson. She's starting to grow into a nice looking young lady, so I have a grandson now. They will be here tonight with my brother Dan. Dan is one of the, which one is he? One of the 17 she has.
Sixth child.
Sixth child, okay. So they'll be here later tonight, you'll meet them tomorrow. They're the ones that are going to put up the entertainment, play some music tomorrow night for all you ladies from up, down, under. You can sing karaoke tomorrow. Rock and roll, we're there. The next one of my families that I own is not here this weekend, but Christy's coming. So Christy's coming tonight. I think she's actually working and making a living, which some of us haven't done for a while. And she'll be here later tonight. The third one, what's the third one? I can't remember all my relatives. Marion, oh God bless her. Marion and her family have arrived. They haven't come here yet tonight. She's married to Dennis Brisky. She has, I think, 37 grandchildren. When did she come? We were at the hotel and it looked like there was 37 there. She's actually got an oldest daughter named Angie and a set of twins. They're not identical. One is a boy, one's a girl. Cindy and Devin. And they both have little families. You'll see them running around. That's three. What am I doing? Brian. We hope she
The
just...
middle child's here.
We hope she
Well,
stopped
they
at that
waving
point.
at boys.
Three older...
That one is yet to come.
But we get back. So let me tell you a story about that.
She's named after her.
She's named after Annie Pat. So that's where that comes from, and I'll let her talk about her own family.
Because I'm the other one in the family with the gift to gab.
I didn't want to take your stage away from you,
I got a job. I'm waiting for a job. Yes, my family is to Mill Sloan. He's away at Union on his mother's side of the family, another part of the country in Alberta, as well as farming after all the rain. We have two children. Our son Jared and his wife Jackie are at a wedding in Calgary, so they're unable to attend. But our daughter Masha will be here this evening with her significant other and bringing our niece Christy back.
That was the word I was looking for, significant other. Thank you.
He's a school teacher.
And they're big words too, eh? It's called marmalade, even another word. After, if you think about it, Brian, Ione, girl. Marion, girl. Patty, girl. Almost a boy. That was Pat. See, getting close. Finally, they do it right. And I get my brother Dave. You want to speak on behalf of your family? I normally don't talk on behalf of your family, because boys really get embarrassed when Brian talks about them, right? He is married to Joanne. They've been married for, I think it's...
My husband's sister.
Well, yeah. One of those things there? Small valley, hillbillish type community. We get along famously. They've been married, I think, for 37 years. How long, Joe? You were telling me the other day. Can you say it? I think they just passed an anniversary not very long ago, right? 23 years. So very congratulations. They have a problem too. Their oldest one, his name is Colin. Their second one, his name is Riley. And what's your name? Come on, introduce yourself. Come on. I'm not going to speak on your behalf. Come on. Show him how tall you are. He's 12 years old. Let me help him. Introduce yourself. This is the family.
Who's not 12?
And this is Bill. He's taller than me for years. I used to tease him because he's a short little guy and he's outgrown me already. This is Bill. Joanne, give up. That's it. No daughter for her. So she's working on the boys to get married as soon as they can. When do you get married? Boys are doing just great. I think all three will be here. They left typewriter. The boys are working tonight. The other two, Bill's kind of guarding the back door to make sure they arrive safely. And that's my brother. Then things went along really good. Now we're a small family. We could almost all fit in the car. Things are going well.
We have a car now.
And we have a car. I forgot about that. Finally got off the horse. Now we finally got a car. The whole family's going along just fine. You know what happens, right? Catholics. Along comes Brother Dan about how many years later? Seemed like 16, but how long? 6 years later. Well, Dan was kind of a spoiled little guy, so they didn't want him to be too sad, so they waited almost 10 months. Along comes little Kathy. You want to speak on behalf of your family?
No, you go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Where are your kids?
My kids are playing ball.
This is Kathy. She's the baby of our family. She's a hell of a lot younger than me by about 13, 14, or 15 years. Still proud of her anyway, even if she is little. And her husband, Dale. They come from Lethbridge, Alberta, which is on the other end of the province. Got your shoes.
We were partying with that table over there.
Anyway, they have 2 children, and they're outside playing. And that's kind of my family. One more task I really want everybody to help me celebrate. Kind of special for me. My wife tells me I've forgotten her birthday more than once. Just being a very busy guy, married for a lot of years. But this year, for the help of a lot of people, I'd like to wish my wife happy birthday today. It's her 47th birthday. Happy birthday, dear. The cake up there, and we'll eat it later. That's my family. Thank you very much. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gloria. Happy birthday to you. Well, that was great, Brian. Thank you. Who's next, Steve?
I guess so. This is the first and last thing you're going to remember about me standing here with this. Okay, we drove out from Ontario, and it's about 2,650 kilometers. And when you drive that far in the car with 2 kids, it makes you a little crazy. So we had a pretty good time. We left on Monday and got out here. We gave ourselves about, I don't know, 4 days or something like that to get out here. So we had a pretty good time. So I just want to invite everybody that if you're ever in the neighborhood, come and see us. We're in Sudbury, Ontario. It's right around the corner. I can tell you it's 2,700 kilometers. But you know what? It was really worthwhile to come out here because I think this is a big thing for Stephanie, my wife. She has the camera there. She's getting this all on film. And I brought my 2 boys, and this is a good opportunity, not just for our kids to come out and see the West, but when will we ever get another chance to have everybody here in a room like this? So I guess to go back as a starting point, I can remember when I was a kid about their age, and my 2 boys were outside playing. My dad told me, hey, you have all these relatives out West, all these cousins. And, you know, just talking from John and Frank and Gail, it was sort of like, everybody out here kind of thought, oh, Mapletofts, this was it in Saskatchewan, a little bit of Alberta, and never realized that there was all these other Mapletofts down in Ontario, and that's us. So, so it really, sort of the lights came on a little bit, I guess you could say, when we found out we had relatives out here, and now you're finding out that you have relatives in Ontario. So this is a little hard for me because I've got all of Ontario on my shoulders here, representing all my brothers and sisters and my mom and dad. So I want to make sure that I get everybody in there and let you know who's who. So a good starting point would be my grandfather was built in Mapletoft, and he was born and raised here. And what happened was he died of pneumonia probably around 27. Yeah, my father would have been 2 years old at the time. So he was actually born here as well. So we do have roots out here, but it goes back. And he's buried in Lloydminster. And we had an opportunity about 20 years to go over there to the cemetery, but we couldn't find any marking over there. I don't think that there was a stone, but he's over there. So what happened was my father was 2 years old and moved back to southern Ontario with his mother and two sisters. And his brother went to Carbon, Alberta.
Mary.
That's right. And that was Harold. And he went to Carbon, Alberta, so they were separated at an early age.
I'm trying to get all these.
Yes, and I had the opportunity to meet her, I believe, back in '86 when we first came. And we went to Carbon, Alberta, and we stayed a day or two there. So that's how it all kind of first started for us, coming out here back in '86. And so anyway, so my father went down there, and there's a story that he told me, and his brother backs it up. It's got to be true, so I'm going to tell you that story. And what happened was my dad, he would have been out of the war, so I'm going to guess he was 21, 22. And he was standing on the street in Mountain Forest, and somebody come up and said, "I'm looking for Lloyd Mapletoft." And he's first person he asked, he said, "Oh, that's me." And he said, "I'm your brother Harold." So that's how they first got reunited. And so that's, that was the start for them. So it was unfortunate that at that age, 1929 would be a pretty rough year, and they got separated and went down there. So my father and mother, they're still alive, and they live in Palmerston, Ontario, which would be about 45 minutes from Kitchener, so it's right in the heart of southern Ontario. And his brother Harold is married, his wife's still alive. They have 2 kids, and they're down more towards the Windsor area. I'd say they're in Wallaceburg, if that name rings bells, getting down towards Windsor. So they're down there, and so I've got 2 brothers, and I've got 2 sisters. And I'm the youngest, so my oldest brother, Ron Mapletoft, he lives down in the Peterborough area. And I've got a sister who lives in Toronto, and I've got another sister who lives in Hamilton. I got a brother who lives in the same town as my parents in Palmerston. So that's it. That's our whole plan, and they each have kids, and so that's us. And as far as I know, there isn't anybody else in Ontario. So we're a pretty small group down there, and all I can say is if you ever get a chance to come down there, and with email now, it's possible to get a hold of people. And, by all means, look them up or look us up if you're ever in Sudbury. So, and that's us. And I got 2 boys in the room side playing. So that's it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for coming out.
Thanks.
By the way, Tyler, Bill and Diana's second oldest, just walked in. The one that got married 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
Me? Can I stay here?
you bet. Maybe you should stand on the stool.
Paris and I were in Australia. Our great-grandfather Thomas came out from England, from Grantham, and he worked for a farmer down in Geelong for a number of years. He and his wife, this was Thomas and Susan. And then the government released some land, so Thomas settled in Wunyu, 320 acres, and actually our brother is still on the same farm. And we're a small group too, like Stephen. There's only 6 boys in Australia that we know of. two grandsons. They're the only ones who are allowed to produce Mapletofts because the others are girls. We've got two brothers, Doris and I, Jack and Bruce, and what else? That's about it, I think. That's about it.
Plenty of grandchildren.
Anything you want to add,
Got
Laura?
plenty of grandchildren. No, you can all invited to come and stay, but just don't all come at the one time. I've only got one spare double
Take you up
bed.
with that.
Just so wonderful for us to be here. Nice to meet all our relations. Thank you, Reuben.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's got lots to say. Your story, actually, my dad told me years ago.
Okay.
We've heard that before, but there's a whole other group in Ontario that my mother comes down through, and I guess we were the third son of the original group of Mapletofts that came over from England. And that third son, at some point, picked up from the Maryborough Township, the homestead there. I've got the maps over there of the original farmsteads that they had. He went down to the Sarnia area with his family. I guess they had 3 children at the time, my great-grandfather and an older brother and a sister as well. And neither of those other two, well, the older brother didn't reproduce, so that left it to my great-grandfather. And that's where I think my dad can take over.
All right.
That's
Okay,
great-grand.
I married originally a Mapletoft. Edward Mapletoft was, I guess, one of the 4 sons that came from England in years 1848 or something like that, and married, and he had 3 boys and 3 daughters. Unfortunately, that line of Mapletoft has now died out. My wife's mother was one of the daughters of Edward Mapletoft. When he lived in Sarnia, he worked for Imperial Oil and all his life, most of his life. I also worked for Imperial Oil all my working life. And back in 1950, the old boy was sick in the hospital, Edward. I call him an old boy. I knew the old guy there. But he never told Joyce, his granddaughter, that used to come there visit him all the time, what his past history was. Nobody knew it, and he never talked about it. But Joyce's mother was the Mapletoft, died about 5 years ago at 92 years old. There was another daughter down south in Florida. She died, we don't know, not too many years ago. But when this old boy was sick in the hospital in 1950, Lane and I ended up in the hospital at the same time, next to the same bed. And this young chick used to come in here and visit his grandfather all the time. And I got likened to her, and I got trying to date her, and it took me 3 weeks later before I got a date for her, and 6 weeks later before I even got a kiss from her. But 9 months later, Joyce and I were married in 1950 at November the 11th. So that November the 11th this year, we will be married 55 years. And we go down south to Arizona right after Thanksgiving. We're gone. But, you know, it's a sad story to see one line of the Mapletoft. It's gone now. So
They all had girls after that, after those boys.
yeah,
They all had girls, they all
so
not
that's
stick around
one other story of these two couples back in 1900 to 1910. There were these guys that were coming up from Florida and selling all this land to a lot of people, and Joyce's grandfather and grandmother bought some land. And we're going to go down to Florida, and we're going to grow oranges and be millionaires. That's what he thought. So he loaded his wife, 5 kids, and the chickens, my grandmother said, and got on the train and went to Florida.
And the pregnant ones?
And she was pregnant at the time. And when they got down there, to find out their land they bought was out in the middle of a lake. So they had to come all the way back home, and eventually he got a job in the Imperial Oil and everything. But it is sadly when you know, one line is gone. Same as my family, I got one grandson, and I'm hoping that he can carry my name. Got lots of granddaughters, but no, that's it. So that's the family. Way to go.
Thank you.
My name's Bill Mapletoft, but it's not, it's Charles William, really, they call me Bill. And my father was Charles William. And he had 3 brothers and 5 sisters. And up until today, there's only 1 sister still remaining alive, so that side of the family is almost gone. I don't know if you've got that knowledge, have you?
Yeah, I got that, yeah.
Yeah, they've all gone. There's only one left. She was quite helpful to us, with giving us a few dates and places that people had died and where they were born. So I don't know whether you've got everything from there, but perhaps we can get together again and check that. Unlike this table here, I had 3 boys. No girls, 3 boys. So hopefully they will carry on the name, but up until today, there's none of them married, so they're all single. The oldest one, this is Carl, he's the oldest son. Still single, by the way. We're hoping that they carry on the name. I had 1 stepbrother and 3 other brothers, or 2 other brothers, sorry. Edwin, he was the oldest brother. He died when he was 20. And I've still got Arthur, who's my younger brother. So really, he's the baby of the family, and that's all about my side of it. So I'll hand you over to Arthur, and he can give you his part of it.
Well, I'm Arthur Mapletoft, my elder brother. But like you lot, I had 2 girls. My eldest girl has a daughter and a son. So they won't carry on very long. So I've left that up to my brother. So really, that's my side of the family.
Arthur, I think that your story about how you eventually became connected to us here is an interesting one.
Yes. One Sunday evening, I got a telephone call. Picked up the receiver, and this boy said, "Is that Mr. Mapletoft?" So I said, yes, who's calling? He said, "It's Mr. Mapletoft here." So I said, "Are you taking the Bible out for me?" "Oh, no, sorry," he said. "I've just flown into England." In fact, he was in Leighton Buzzard, which was about an hour's cycling. And he said, "You're the only way I can find in the telephone book." Which I arranged a meeting to come to my house. And he met my mother, who was alive at that point. And the family resemblance was there. It was quite astonishing. So that was it, really. And then, about 7 years ago, I was coming to Canada to my mother-in-law's 80th birthday in Toronto. So duly I rang Edward to say, "Look, I'm going to be in Canada. Shall we have a meet up?" "Oh yes, you must come to my place and meet me." So we flew up to this part of the country. And this is when I met Reuben and Bill. I didn't get to meet Frank at that point. So that's how I know this side of the family. That's my story.
Thank you, Arthur. Now, how are we going to deal with that corner down there? Ben, are you going to tell the story? Joan?
way around the Spirit River, which is 500 miles or kilometers north of Edmonton. We live on Ralph's farm. Ralph works construction in the summer and helps his son with seismic in the winter. I stay home, keep the fires burning, etc. My late husband, Robert William Mapletoft, is the son of Percy and Ida Mapletoft. Percy was another quiet gentleman. We don't know a lot about his past history. I do know he was born in Fergus, Ontario, 1911, and I believe his parents were Richard and he left home very early because of the death of his mother, my dad, and that's about all we know. Bob and I, my husband, have 7 children. With me this evening is my oldest daughter Diane, her husband Daryl, Fort St. John, Joan taking all the pictures, her husband Al, Fort St. John, and I forgot, sorry, Diane's daughter Lenny, and Lenny and her husband Brian. There he is, Brian. You should stand up when I say your name. And my daughter Sandra and her husband Walter. Stand up straight. From Olds, Alberta, arriving still on the road are Sandra Walter's 2 children, 2 sons, and their families. And let's help you. I want to thank you very much. I look forward to meeting everyone in the next 2 days and reading all that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mary, you're going to tell us your story?
I am Mary Fife, and I am the granddaughter of Etta Maxwell, who was the 6th child of Edward and Margaret Newton. And Etta had 2 girls, Myrtle, who had 2 girls, and neither of their families are here tonight. And my mother, Gertrude, was an adopted daughter, and she had 2 girls, myself and my older sister, and unfortunately they're not here. But I have my daughter, my husband Stuart first, and then Kathy, our oldest daughter, Andrea, and her husband Martino, who is probably out with the boys, 2 boys with us tonight. So that's basically our family.
Brian?
Yeah, I can talk about our family. I'm the 3rd son of a family of 7, including the adopted daughter Diane. There was David, the oldest bank manager, Robert, who works for local council in Peterborough. I'm the 3rd son, as I mentioned. I'm a corporate treasurer. Richard is now a teacher, was an actor. Nigel will speak for himself, no doubt, working for a credit card company. And Jonathan, who I'm afraid died a few years ago in a traffic accident. We are the sons of Morris, who was a fighter pilot in the last war, and then went to train pilots in Rhodesia. And my mum is, our mum, is still alive. She's 87, and would have been here, but she said she's just an in-law and this is a baby. We've got 3 children, Barbara and I. Barbara is my wife, our next door neighbour when we were children, so we go back a long way. We've got Charles, Adam and Nick. Like some of the others, they're not married, and we're hopeful that one day we will be grandparents, but it hasn't happened yet as far as we're aware. Nigel, as I say, can speak for himself. His children are here today, and so maybe Nigel can mention his own.
Yeah, I am Nigel Mapletoft, Brian's youngest brother.
brother now, I guess you would say, although it wasn't Sunday. My wife in the far end is Sue. She's a teacher in Northampton. Emma, many of you met, is my daughter, second year at vet school at Liverpool, and she's been over here now for 6 weeks, staying with many of you in this room. So thank you very much for that. And Alexander over there is my son. The only one I'm going to admit to anyway. He's about to start up a 6, as we call it in England, the year before he goes to university, hopefully next year. Enough is said as far as I'm concerned at the moment, because we're talking probably a little bit too much tomorrow night. We've got quite a few slides to go through. Evidently there's 3,500 names that I've accumulated over the years. I'm not going to mention every one of them, I hasten to add, tomorrow night, but I guess there'll be a fair few that we will mention. I've got one other thing to say though. Emma's been over here now for 6 weeks. She's been wined and dined and had a wonderful time over here. And she phoned me up 4 weeks ago and said, what can I do to say thank you to Ruben, to Frank and to Tyler as well. And we had a bit of a think and we put together 3 presentations for you. Here, Ruben, you can open that one while I have a quick chat. I did this first for my own family about 15 years ago, and we managed to get 14 generations. We didn't know a little bit more now, and I've just printed off 15 generations for Ruben, for Tyler and Frank. And thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you. And by the way, if you want to leave Emma, that's quite all right.
She's not married yet.
We have some new people that have just come in. And before we do that, we've got our... I often say you can always tell a Dutchman, but you can't tell him very much. Another adopted son. Pete Van Doon, an immigrant from Holland who has pretty much been a Mapletoft since he got to Canada. So he's visiting as well. I'm sorry, now you can go ahead and introduce your family.
Granddaughter of James Mapletoft, who was the only son who sort of stayed in Ontario and stayed in London. Anyway, so Charles and all the rest of them up here. Anyway, my son-in-law is with me and my daughter is Melissa Beasley and our son is welcome to Ontario, and we live in Parkland. My husband is here too. So we just arrived and we look forward to it, and we thought we might not get here till about 2 days from now because we've been driving through everywhere around here. And we met one of the relatives.
You're going to add to that story?
Well, I can. If we just like, I was the eldest son of our Mapletoft Penny. Our name is Penny. This is my sister Kate. There's 6 kids in our family, and I think there's 13 grandchildren and a couple of great-grandchildren. Pennies, but this is the last Mapletoft name. This was my mom, and as moved on. I live in Guelph, Ontario, and what's been kind of fun, I live in the county where George and Anna Mapletoft came to Canada in the 1840s with their 4 little boys, and then one more was born shortly after, and I'm sure hoping to find some of the dates because we're very close, but it looks like there was a son named Charles who was born in about 1845. But I've been through the museum there, and we've been able to trace the family from when they homesteaded in 1852 with their father and the 4 boys, the 5 boys. My great-grandfather, who I knew, James Mapletoft, was born born on the original homestead farm. We've been to that farm. I can show you where that is. They moved on to Mount Forest area, and eventually my grandfather, James Mapletoft, moved to London. A lot of the families, my mother said, though, came here in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And we've got little pieces of history that we're hoping to share with you in the next few days with those people. And I hope you can share with us, because they all just kind of disappeared. But I heard names, Fergus, and I can help piece together some of the Fergus story, and Richard, and I can show you where he's buried, and tie that together. They're children of James, who was the oldest brother of my great-grandfather. So we can travel a long time. We've got it all laid out. And we do have some pictures, some old pictures of some of the people, some of the names that you mentioned here of Annie, who she met in 1898. She was 16 years old in the school. So it's kind of fun. It's really kind of fun to see the resemblances here, the faces. We're really looking forward to learning the Western story. The name kind of, everybody moved. The few that stayed, or some of the few that stayed in Ontario. That's our story.
Thank you for persevering. And we're glad you made it.
I even have an announcement of when you graduated from veterinary college.
Oh!
You had a very proud little aunt who put it in the local newspaper.
Aunt Maggie.
Yes, yes.
Well, I didn't. I'm sorry?
In 1967.
67, yeah.
67.
Yeah. She came down and visited me several times as well.
We know more about you than you know about us.
We'll fix that the next couple of days.
We even know what some of our grandparents wore at their wedding. So why anybody kept track of that, I don't know.
But you make a good point. We have these tables here, and what I hope people will do is put out their books and their pictures and whatnot. We've got them covered with junk now because we moved some pictures off the wall so we could put up the family tree. We'll move those pictures over here because they are the old farmstead, Grandpa John and Uncle Charlie's, and where Bill and Diana live now. We have a picture of Grandpa John and Grandma, and a picture of my mom and dad, Edgar and Pat. So we'll put them up over here if any of you want to look at them. Also, we have a banner up there that was prepared by Gloria Huckelack, and we thought we would put it up there for people that might want to have pictures taken. It's very carefully planned so that it'll just be above your heads if you're having pictures taken. So that is also possible as well. I don't know if there's anything else we want to, Gail?
Yes, I have something I'd like to say. I'd like to thank two men in particular, and they probably didn't even know one another at the time, but it's their fault that we decided to do this. And one is Stephen Mapletoft from Ontario, because I was talking to him because he met my son, our youngest son, and his whole family, they know Justin because they watch him play hockey. And we were talking on the phone about a little more than a year ago, and he happened to mention to me that, gee, it sure would be nice to have a Mapletoft reunion. And yeah, sure, that would be very nice. And Reuben was talking with Nigel, and Nigel happened to mention, gee, it sure would be nice to have a Mapletoft reunion. So last year in Red Deer, Alberta, our oldest son got married, and Reuben and I got together, and Bill and Diana, because we had breakfast, and that's a good place to get together as a family wedding. And I said, you know, you guys, I've been talking with Steve down in Ontario, and he said, boy, it sure would be nice to have a family reunion. Reuben says, I've been talking with Nigel, and he said, so, Stephen and Nigel, it's your fault. That I would really like to thank, and I think we all need to give him a round of applause. He is Reuben, because if it wasn't for him and the emailing, he's a good emailer. Did you know that?
Oh, very good.
No, you're good. You send them out. We don't read them all the time. Or we get around to it a week later. But I really think we owe these three men, Stephen, Nigel, and Reuben, a great round of applause, because this is their.
Anything else we want to talk about, Patty?
I was signed up here to back you up, but I don't think you need much back. This lady here was one of the nicest friends in town. She and Mother did a lot of work this morning on all day, but they did give me another task to do. I know all of you have been involved in putting this all together, but Reuben, I think from our branch of the tree, you've done the most work and got things going for us. So we've got a little stress relief kit for you, just because we know you're a little bit stressed out. Diane just mixes up buns when she's stressed out and we can eat, but, and by the way,
I send emails.
all of these, you send emails, all this food, we ate everything that was at the wedding. We ate our faces off, so this is all new stuff. So enjoy it. So we have a stress reliever kit here. First of all, Reuben, we have an eraser for you, so you can make all your mistakes disappear. We have a penny for you, so you never have to say, I'm broke. We have a marble for you, in case someone says you've lost your marbles. And a rubber band to help stretch yourself beyond the limits which you've shown certainly for this event. And of course, a hug and a kiss to remind you someone somewhere cares about you, and I think right now there's a number of us. And we've got a string to tie things together when everything falls apart. And last of all, a star to wish on. And I wish you God bless you.
Well, where do I go from here? I guess we want to visit some more. We want to look at family tree. We want to look at pictures.
But if the people that have come in or other people need to know about the bus.
For the people who have just arrived, tomorrow morning, breakfast between 8 and 9:30. The bus is going to be ready to go at 10, and we're going to do the historic tour. We're going to be at Frenchman Butte for lunch and the museum. We're going to end up with the rifle pits, and then back here tomorrow night for hip of beef.
Reuben, maybe just make mention, we are going to have, what's Brown's first name?
Wayne Brown.
So the people that are on the bus are going to get more history if you think you're going to tag along or whatever. But the people that do go on the bus are going to get history from a historian. I wish my father would have been.
Actually, Wayne is a published historian. Wayne does have a book out.
And he's doing another.
He's doing that one.
Anyway, he's going to be giving you a play-by-play commentary as you're driving along with the bus. And nobody could really make it come alive like Dad, but I'm sure Wayne is going to do a great job. He's really an authority on this.
So when Reuben talks lunch at the tea house, we're going to supply you with sandwiches and squares and cold drinks. And if you want a hot drink or tea, the tea house does sell.
They don't sell, you got to give a
I was
donation.
going to say, it has to be a donation. They don't sell
They'll
it per
give you
se.
tea or coffee.
So if you want a hot tea or coffee or
And a
just
square.
even juice, and they get squares with it as well. You know, it's up to you. We're not packing hot drinks.
Mapletofts?
Yeah. An hour ago, we were all strangers. Now, we're family. And I feel like we're family.
So, let's carry on. Head back to Lloydminster whenever you want to.
How many? Whatever.
There still was not yet. As a matter of fact, our last visitors have been to Lloydminster. When you guys can help me take part.
A few cameras up. I fared it.
time we got these guys out. They still eating. Here, this is probably the first property that they owned, because they actually lived on this little hill right outside the door here.
Okay, I'm just going to interrupt this for a second. Are there any other kids that want to come?
Well, Charlie's homestead to live on because there was water there. There is no water over here.
But it's beautiful over there.
One other thing, the old Fort Pitt store and post office used to be right on this little hill as well.
Yeah. And it moved down the road a quarter of a mile. Okay, that's it.
How did you say they came here? What year did they homestead here?
And they came out here in the spring of 1913.
No, the homestead say 1912.
That's when they took the homestead, but they were in Edmonton in 1912.
They took the homestead in 1912. They moved out here in 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the, if you would like to read it, it's in the photo album I have of my parents. My daughter graciously picked it up from something that my dad told me.
By the way, the map of the area is over there on the wall. It has all the quarter sections, and at the top it has current owner, or the owner, at least when that map was drawn. But at the top of each quarter section, they have who homesteaded it and when they homesteaded it. On there, you'll see John and Charlie Mapletoft, 1912. That's all that, Mary. We can get on the bus.
What's her first name?
I'm not sure.
Her father was the guy
What's the movie? What's the movie?
She said she wanted to help get some help because
You have to plug it in at night?
Did you?
Yes, I did last night.
Holy cow, are you organized?
But eventually I'll have to get a new battery.
I'm going to sit in the back of the bus.
is everyone happy? I see Stephanie back there with her video camera. Listen up here, folks. Stephanie has been recording practically everything that's been going on, including the little speeches last night. Steve wondered if others would want copies of that video.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's get a list made up. We haven't quite figured out how we're going to copy it yet, but we'll figure out. So we'll get a list made up of names and addresses of people who want Stephanie's video. But you can see the old house, and maybe what I'll do is take a picture with my camera and we can project it tonight with the PowerPoint presentation. And Mary, do you want to talk about it?
Up here you'll see Ray's name, that's in case of any complaints. You get a hold of him. Glenn doesn't like any smoking on the bus. He also doesn't like drinking, but if somebody needs an eye opener, go ahead. Otherwise, the only other rule I have is if you will remain seated till the bus is stopped, please. Have a good day.
I went to Toronto earlier on in the year.
Okay.
My in-laws live in Toronto.
Okay.
My brother-in-law and my mother-in-law.
All right. Good. Good. So, I mean, you guys came a long ways. We hopped in the car and drove out for,
Yeah, but it took you
3 or 4 days, but yeah. But you know, we thought it was a good opportunity. A couple of these Warner kids have never been out here before. I mean, they flew to Calgary once, and they met, they only would have met Frank and Gail and Justin that they're out here and they're meeting some other kids that they're playing with.
Yeah, having a great time, I think, don't you?
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for them to look back on it. And this is something that we do every few years. That as they get older, it's just going to get better.
Yeah, you really enjoy those bonding sessions as a child. Yes, but it's even like you, Carl, last night when we was talking to the other youngsters of your age.
You learn more about the family than you know what we know, really, don't you? Just by talking to.
So there's not a whole lot of family then in England, and there's just a handful like over here. Or?
No, I think there are quite a few.
Quite a few in England. It's unfortunate, really, that we didn't know about this long enough for people to arrange to come.
Okay.
Because our cousins and that all gone on holiday.
Okay.
So they couldn't come.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, it could have been a lot bigger contingent from England.
Yeah.
If we'd have had longer to arrange things.
So you've known for some time that you had relatives over here?
Oh yeah. I say, as I said last night, I originally had a phone call from Edinburgh.
Right.
Just listen for a minute.
Okay.
Hello? Came into the family, she cooked for all 4 men. Because they all lived together. That I used to love playing in because there was lots of minnows.
It's called Old Man Creek.
Right here was the first shop that was built. There's nothing remaining of it, but there was a shop right in this corner. And I can remember my Uncle Charlie when we'd be having a picnic because they had what we call an ice house, which was sawdust with ice stored in it all summer. And then you take a lump of ice out and you would make ice cream by cranking. Scoop. That's where the first hen house was.
The original house, if you look at the, you see a white car there, or light colored car, to the right of it is a large tree. Just this side of the tree is where the original house was, and it really started out with a log cabin about 20 by 20, and over the years it was added on to until it was a pretty large house in later years.
Until I was 7 years.
Doors into the loft of the barn, it's behind us now. They used to drive right up in there with the team of horses to haul hay and straw up into the barn. Because they had an engine and a pump in there, but was it ever anything else? And so you would keep your cream and butter and so on cool by lowering it down into this well that had ice in the bottom. And again, ice that was in that ice shed down below might be moved up here to be put in the bottom of the cab somewhat later, because we were using the commercial cows for recipients for embryo transfer calves. But we had a very, very active operation in those days. You can see the open fronted sheds where the cows pens to the beyond that is where the cows would be prior to being put into the calving pens. On the immediate left, there's a shed and a shop that has been put in recent years too. The farm is very much in disrepair. Of course, Bill's got his problems with multiple sclerosis. I'm no longer actively involved here, and Frank, of course, is in Calgary. That little pen to your left there, and we'll come by it on the way back, is a little hockey rink that Dad prepared for Cole in recent years. And boy, he spent hours out there preparing this little hockey rink so Cole could. They would have crop in here, so they would pasture along the fence, and I can remember as a young lad having to walk down the edge of the swamp to bring the milk cows back in the evening. And I don't know that for a fact, perhaps Aunt Mary will know, but by and large there were not many trees. We had a little house that was just south of Bill and Diana's house. It was, oh gosh, it was tiny. I don't know how big it was. We lived there
until about 1948, at which time Dad built over to the other place. Side, the beaver, they just built up this road here in the past year, and Jason tells me that the beaver have got the culvert already dammed off. So at various times over the years, the water actually flooded over the road because the beaver would put a dam in the culvert or the bridge, and the water had to go somewhere, so it would flood over the road. This often was a place where they put the milk cows as well, and it was impossible to get across. The beavers were involved, so it was just a little area they could pasture, and they couldn't go anywhere else because they had fence on this side and creek on the other side. I think now what we'll do is go over to Dad's place. School built by my grandfather on my mother's side in 1911. We also have another silage pit out here beyond, and various little pens and paddocks around here. The pasture out to the west here will connect to my farm, which is directly adjacent to this one on the west side. Carry on, I think that's about it. We're very close to the hall, so if any of you want to come down here later on, certainly you can. That little building there, another one of these engine houses, has got all kinds of relics of my dad's there. The house has got all kinds of relics of my dad. He was a great student of Northwest history, and I've got to get some of this stuff into the museum in Frenchman Butte. I think just carry on.
Just make one sort of a comment here. I'll introduce myself a little bit later and so on, but I had the barn, and time after time he'd remind me of that. And I remember one day we're standing on the back porch right here, and he says, "Listen, can you hear that? That's the squeak of the Red River carts on that trail. You can still hear them."
Yeah, often people didn't really know what he was talking about because he was trying to put them right in the seat of that Red River cart. Camp between Fort Pitt and Fresh Butte was right on my farm, down in the Pipestone here. Polluted as a result of industry in Edmonton. They've looked at mercury levels in fish in the river here, and they're incredibly high. But this river runs right through the city of Edmonton, and that is responsible for a lot of the pollution that we've got.
Very specific way, his particular style. So the natives, when they took the fur bundles, they went to Fort Vermilion, which is Lee Park, to the west of us here, about 30 miles or so. They went there to trade. Them, and the chief trader there saw the bundles and knew that they were the tying was done by Frenchie, and that he came to the conclusion that Frenchie was probably dead. So after the natives he did the trading, and after the natives left, he got on a saddle horse and rode out and searched around and found them at the base of, or the remains at the base of the butte. So that's where it came from, the name. We don't know who the Frenchman was or anything like that at all. And the other thing is that a lot of those Frenchmen, traders, one of the first things they would do is latch onto a native woman, because that gave them significant protection in their dealings with other natives, because things didn't always go smoothly, and the native woman could smooth things out for them. So consequently, they would do that, make that sort of a union, and nothing official or anything like that. They just sort of lived and traveled together and so on. And that's where a lot of the descendants of those people, you run into specific names, very often French derivative or Scotch, and they're the reason. They are the reason for.
Try that one. Are you okay? If I around the corner, I can't think who it is on the end.
In front of someone's camera.
I've got to get the side. I feel like a movie star out here.
Left a bit, right a bit. Down and then up a bit.
I got to suck it in this.
Yes, because probably recommend they're pretty good travelers, you know, on that respect, if that's the thing, right? The unfortunate thing
Whatever you want to wait for.
Just pull back on her. Pull back, pull back. If she's walking too fast, just pull back. Straight back. What's going up there?
What are we doing?
We're better at going this one way. There, how's that? Thanks for taking Grandpa?
Oh, wait for it, right?
Grandpa?
Oh.
Okay, look up, Grandpa.
There, we can pull up and... There we go. You haven't rode Chico in a long time either. Good. You next? You next? If you want to. Then grab the horse and pull yourself up. Throw your legs. Yeah, just throw it right over. Throw it right over. Yeah, this like this here. Go like that. There you go. All right. Well, you've ridden horses before, right?
Yeah.
They can ride you a little.
Just ask him for a ride.
Okay.
Ready? Give it a kick. There you go.
you stop, just give a little kick in the side.
How do you stop? You pull it?
Pull his reins back and stop.
What is that, Dad?
Probably a well or something.
Oh, my grandpa pictures where his money. Okay, I guess we have to go another round. I don't have to. Turn this way. You're gonna pass. No. What do we have to do? Here? Yeah, he just came. He didn't move. Yeah. It's gonna be hard and hard. Can I pick the easy one too?
She just went to work, hit work day.
Hey Adam, look up here.
So you guys had a good wedding?
Yeah, fine.
My camera's already done, so I can't
Surely it's okay now. Just control it from the computer. 9 months ago, Ruben said that there's a lot of stuff early on in the family tree that we don't know very much about. Could I put together a bit of a presentation? So Brian and myself pulled together a bit of stuff. We've got some stuff from Julie Campbell in Australia. Lynette sent some stuff regarding the Jones family. What I want to do for the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, till midnight, until the battery runs out. Before the battery runs out, is give you a bit of a chat about the family tree. There's 2 sections that I want to cover. Firstly, I want to talk about Fenton. We all come from a little village in Lincolnshire called Fenton. And I've had a lot of people saying, where on earth is that? Well, it's the back of beyond, but we'll show you exactly where it is. Then I'll hand over to Brian. You see, on that family tree, and you'll find out a bit later, we're all related to Robert Mapletoft and Mary Jane Redford, and they are stuck right in the very corner of that display there. At either end are 2 parts of the family who, unlike ourselves, became extremely rich and extremely influential as well. There's Hugh over here, and there's Roland's team, Roland's lot over there. And Brian's going to talk about those sort of family connections. Now, he's a bit of an accountant, Brian is, right? He can talk for England, yeah? I saw it actually, saw myself, drove through it about 10 years ago. It was literally 3 buildings. It was the church, which was built, I don't know exactly the date, about the 11th century. The old hall, which was built in the 13th century. The bit on the left-hand side is the stone building. And the only other building that was there was a farm. Sue and myself went back 3 weeks ago to take these photographs, and it's turned into a commuter town. Right, I'll show you why it's a commuter town, a commuter village. I'll show you why. Okay, that's the beloved country, as I'm sure you all know. What is it, about 4,500, 5,000 miles east of here? That area there is Lincolnshire. Okay, Lincolnshire's the bottom of Lincolnshire is about 100 miles north of London. Okay, this here is a 19th century map of Lincolnshire itself. Right, that's the old county boundaries. And there's 4 towns that are very close to Brian and myself, because you know I was born in Lincoln. Brian there was born in Sleaford. I lived in Lincoln according to my mother for 10 days. I think Brian was in Sleaford for about 7. The other day from Calgary, was it Calgary? That little dot there is the area that we're talking about. And Mapletofts in England didn't move outside that little dot for about 400 years. Yeah? The first people who moved out was Jane Redford and Robert Mapletoft's sons, and they're the ones who actually dispersed to all 4 corners of the globe, as you've seen in a few minutes.
was brought up in Claypole, which is just 3 miles from Fenton. So therefore you can see that we moved 1.3 inches per day over a 4-year period. It's not entirely true, but it's a good point. Okay. So we had 3 branches. Alexander was the farmer. He was our ancestor, died 1616. Roland, they lived in Claypole, funnily enough, had 3 children. We've not traced anything of them beyond about 1645, when the youngest of their children was born. And Hugh, who was the star pupil of the family, had a good education and so on. And he was the vicar of North Thoresby. We say, who became rich. He prospered. I'll be speaking a lot about Hugh's family, which is the family which we consider the most senior, which, as Nigel was saying, is by the door. It's top left, and we're bottom right. So we are, in a sense, we're paying homage to the better part of our family. Side, they still exist, but their name's Davis, and they're in New South Wales. But we don't think that the Mapletofts part of Hugh's family exists anymore beyond those 300 years. Next. Now, I want to talk about the associated tree called the Barkston Mapletofts, as Nigel mentioned, a little village about 5-6 miles away from Fenton. There were 2 boys from these neighbouring villages. One was Hugh, our uncle, you might say, relative. He went to Cambridge to do his Bachelor of Theology at St Catherine's College in 1579. A guy called William Mapletoft from Barkston went to Trinity College in 1583. Now, I put it to you that 2 young lads from neighbouring villages going to neighbouring colleges within 3 or 4 years of each other had to have a lot in common. William went off to become vicar of Pickworth, a village in South Lincolnshire, and on Lincolnshire pedigrees, sort of a research thing from Lincolnshire. We've got the Pickworths, which is William's family, and Hugh went on to become vicar after being an intermediate vicar of a place called Ewerby near Sleaford, became vicar of North Thoresby in the north part of Lincolnshire, and this is his connection. And as I say, we're Alexander effectively on the agricultural side. I put it to you that there is a connection. Our problem is that we can't actually find what that connection is, but my guess is that they were cousins, and that if we could get back just 1 generation further, then we would have a whole new 300 years worth of vicars and reverends and so on from the Barkston Mapletofts, who we can still track down. They had names like Edmund and Styles and so on. We can track those down over the next 200 or 300 years. But again, we can't find any extant at this moment in time. So we think that the Barkston Mapletofts effectively died out sometime in the 19th century, or effectively just the female side of their lot existed. Next one. The 17th century. Now you've got to try and think back what sort of time it was then. We've established already that we've got major agricultural and ecclesiastical roots, going back certainly into Elizabethan times. What was happening to the church then? You had polarization between the Catholic side, remember the gunpowder plot and so on, and the Puritan side. We've had during our lifetime an awful lot of propaganda from America, which had, you know, the founding fathers and so on, Mayflower and all of the rest, from their Puritan heritage. We've not heard much about the C of E, the traditional middle-of-the-road heritage. And the problem is that there was such a polarization at that time that the central church people had effectively to create their own religious communities. And this is where this particular family came in, Nicholas Ferrer
his brother John, and the Collett family, and they established a religious community at a place called Little Gidding, which I believe is in Cambridgeshire today. I think it was in Huntingdonshire then. I think they changed the boundaries. But Little Gidding was a religious community of about 40 families. These three, the Ferrers, the Colletts, and, if you please, the Mapletofts. And two of the children of Hugh, Joshua and Solomon, married two of the Collett girls. They had a big family, they had a lot of girls, we had a lot of boys. They came together in this religious community where effectively they were trying to live out a religious life, almost trying to extricate themselves from the dissension that was happening at that time. They were visited by the king in about 1534. But later when the Civil War occurred, remember that started in 1642, the king had a bad time of it, and after the Battle of Naseby, which was his culminating defeat, which took place in June 1645, Charles had to go somewhere. Where did he go? He went to his friends, Little Gidding, just for a couple of nights, on the run effectively from the pursuing Roundheads. 3 months later, the Roundheads arrived. It was a guy called Manchester who was in charge. They destroyed the religious community and threw the font into the pond and so on, and they were all broken up. I might say Edmund, at the bottom, a Berkshire Mapletoft, was thrown out of his living at Hardwick for popish practices, and if you please, they, in order to sort of reinforce the point, they put it down as negligence as well. So there was a tremendous polarization, and the Mapletofts are right in the middle of it. Next one. We've had, you know, when all celebration was forbidden, you know, you could have no Christmas trees at Christmas and the like. All of the churches were painted with whitewash and so on, instead of the marvellous array of colours that used to be in the churches and so on. Suddenly people could be, you know, recognised for what they were. Now, Robert Mapletoft, who was one of the brothers of Joshua and Solomon, who I've already mentioned, he gave the funeral oration at Nicholas Ferrer's funeral in 1637. He was restored to his fellowship of Pembroke College, Cambridge. He had been thrown out by the Puritans in 1644. He then became Dean of Ely, became advisor to the king in religious matters. He was brought in to try to prevent James, who became later James II, from trending towards the Catholic side, and in that he failed. But he died in 1677, and in his will he founded these schools, one in Louth, mentioned there, and one in North Thoresby, which was the village where he was born. And there's still a Mapletoft school today in North Thoresby. His nephew, John, was a professor of medicine, they called it physic in those days, at Gresham College in London. He was also a fellow of the Royal Society, which was founded in 1660. Luminaries like Robert Boyle, you probably know from Boyle's Law, founder of chemistry, was an associate. And one of his school pals, they went to Westminster School together, was John Locke, the philosopher. They used to meet in John Locke's room discussing political ideas and the like, and this was 20 years before John Locke went on to produce his essay on human understanding, which was his seminal work. John was succeeded in 1679 by John Locke in his place at Gresham College. John Locke was a philosophical writer, as I mentioned. He wrote the Constitution for Carolina, one of the major colonies in America, and was one of the, in terms of his religious tolerance and so on, his ideas, way ahead of his time, and was one of the inspirations for the Declaration of Independence for the US, which followed about 100 years later. John lived a big, long life. He died age 90 eventually. He left his post at Gresham College and took holy orders, became Doctor of Divinity, etc., and became a vicar at St Lawrence Jewry in London, and that's where he's buried. And stayed in his later life with his daughter, Elizabeth, who married Bishop of Chester. So he was really quite a guy in his time. What we don't know is why he moved away from medicine into the church. Was it political? There were a lot of funny things going on at that time, and it could have had some connection with Robert, but we don't know everything. Right, next. About the same family. The two guys that I'm mentioning here, Robert and John, were grandsons of the famous John the Professor that I've just mentioned. Robert was pastor to the East India Company at the time of the Black Hole of Calcutta. That's been overplayed in history, largely for political reasons at the time. But nevertheless, there was this famous incident. He wasn't actually there. He was with most of the civilians at the time, was taken out to a place called Fulta, and we think he died of disease in Fulta. And a couple of years later, John, his brother, was on this ship, the Boscawen, and we guess he died of disease. It wasn't killed in action or anything like that. But, these were early guys out in the Far East making their way and establishing what later became the Indian part of the British Empire. Nathaniel was their brother. He married well, in inverted commas, in terms of into this Cockayne family. Sometimes it's with a C. The Cockanes were...
Not when I spell it.
Thank you. The Cockanes were a merchant family in London, and the first Viscount Cullen had been Lord Mayor of London in about 1620. They later lost their, the Cullens didn't continue into the 19th century, but the Cockanes were still around, and they're still remembered today. You might know Elgar wrote a series of symphonies and the like. Well, one particular item that he wrote is called In London Town, and that's known also as the Cockayne Overture. So they were well connected and well remembered. Was from much more humble stock. In the corner, as Nigel's already mentioned, Robert married Jane Redford. As Nigel's already mentioned, Robert married Jane Redford in 1765. They settled in Braceby. They have a large family. Many of them die in childhood. For instance, we come from an Edward, but not the first Edward. The first Edward had died, and then the next baby that came along, which happened to be the last one, they called.
But what's he got to do with our family? Who knows?
If we'd been all priests, we wouldn't be here.
If we'd been all priests, we wouldn't be here because we're not very good at begatting when we're priests. That's one point. Henry VIII it was, who, after he had sacked, burnt and basically pillaged all of the monasteries, he was the guy, in fact it was Thomas Cromwell, who said, thou shalt, in other words the parish shall keep parish records. He said that in 1537. Trouble is, he made a slight mistake. He didn't realise that everybody in the parishes were illiterate. That's his first problem, so how can they keep records? Can you see him?
Can't read it.
Sorry?
Can't read it.
Where's the Mapletoft?
When you're looking at it, you can't read it.
There's one.
There you go, yes.
Okay, can you see any more?
I'm looking.
Oh, here's one. Robert. I think there's 7 on that page. Four of them relate to us. Okay. It's not bad, is it? I can keep looking at that page and you can keep seeing others. I don't want to point to your left. Wife of Robert Bevitt. Yeah? And 2 further down, 18th of... Hang on, no, 3 further down. Is it the 18th of October, Robert Mapletoft? That's husbandman Bevitt. Right, the translation took Brian and myself about 5 years and we finished it 2 months ago. Yeah? In the top left-hand corner, in, you see the sort of double I-N, then you've got the name of God, G-O-D. Brian needs to point, sorry. In the name of God, next word, amen. Yeah? The, right, that's the. Then XXVII, 27th. Yeah, day of, right, over on the left-hand side, October. Yeah? Right, keep going. In the year of our, that's O-R in the I, look, O, the R's in the air. What's this one? Is that Lord? Should be. Lord God. Right. Ready for this next one? 1,000. Yeah. 400. 4 and 14. Is that right? 4 and 14. Yeah. Okay. Robert. Is that easier? Yeah. Oh, this by the way is quite a good one. Okay. I, Robert Mapletoft of Fenton in New Parish of Beckingham in the county of Lincoln, husbandman. Husbandman is a guy who farms the land, husbands the land. Sick in body, yet of good and perfect memory, praise be God, do make and ordain this my last will and testament in manner and form following. Pewter goblets, they call them doublers, yeah? Pewter doublers, left lots of those as well. Robert was a very canny guy, mine and your 9 great-grandfather. He didn't leave a will at all, but he was also a rich man, okay? And so what they did, with the people around the village, sort of influential people in Fenton, went and did an inventory of his stuff. That, anybody knows pounds, shillings and pence? Okay, so 50 shillings is £2.50 effectively. Item 2 cupboards, this is exactly how it's spelt in the inventory. 2 cupboards, 2 little tables and a form. Form is just a bench seat. Yeah? 17 pieces of pewter, 13 shillings and 4pence. 2 chafing dishes, which is effectively an old fondue set, effectively, in the olden days. It's an earthenware pot that you can put over your open fire. Yeah? So it's all your cooking stuff, your hooks to hang your pots on, all of that is in that top 2 sentences. Bedsteads, coverlets, mattresses and quilts, £4, look, one that dropped off, he just left it in his fallow field, and it grows, doesn't it? Yeah? And it's covered in the rich bloke as well, and then it all goes to pot. You see, the trouble is, Gervais had a son, I think his son's name was Timothy, just Alexander, reasonably rich, worth £86 when he died. He died in 1616. Right? Don't know anything about his son Robert, nothing about him whatsoever, apart from what you see there. But then Gervais also died and left a lot of stuff. He had 3 sons, I think. He left a lot of stuff and made sure he was looking after his daughter, who was still at school, and he put various things in his will to make sure his daughter had a decent education. It went on to Timothy, and this is the guy who left all his money to everybody apart from ourselves. So the money leaves the family at this point. Okay? It then goes down to another Gervais. Gervais has moved from Fenton to Threckingham. You might read it as Threckingham. The word is Threckingham, honestly. Gervais moved from Fenton to Threckingham, and I'll explain why in a few minutes' time. And after Gervais, we get Robert. Robert born in Threckingham, and he married Jane Redford. Any of you who've been to paying him tonight? I've been paying him later on, you see. Right? A long time. A long time. I've done about 40 wills. I've got some here, actually. Back. Robert's took us 5 years to get right. Yeah? But it is right now. I'm absolutely sure we got it right. Brian said, thanks for the prompt here, Brian said, why do you believe the ones that don't have very much writing, yeah, they died as babies. So you've got there 9 kids, 4 of them died as babies. Okay? I won't dwell about my Edward on the right hand side, because you're far more interested in Robert at the top, who married Sarah Parks. Okay? Robert married Sarah Parks, and look at that lot. They had 15 children. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 of them died off as babies. One sign, I mean, infant mortality, okay, it's high because we don't have medicine. One sign of one cause of huge infant mortality is because you've got poverty. Yeah? I hate to say it, but look at Anne, born 1821. She was our Edward. She was his, I can't remember, 3rd, 4th child or something like that. She was the cousin of your George. So I don't know if that's, I don't know if you've got anything, I don't know if you've got any photographs of George himself, but she's of the same generation. She was a naughty girl. Yeah? Can't believe it, can you? Yeah, you would have thought butter would have melted in her mouth. She was a naughty girl. 1845, she had an illegitimate boy. And as a young man, he was a big churchman, went to church every Sunday. I think he was a church warden as well. But he's a road sweeper. That was his job. One day he was out sweeping the road, and along came the vicar. The vicar had fallen out. The vicar had fallen out with the local farmers. They had a lot of land in the village where they lived, a village called Carpenscrew. They had a lot of land that was tithe land that was owned by the church, and they used to rent it out to the farmers. And the church wanted to put the rents up, and the farmers said, blow you, and chucked it back at them. So the vicar had a lot of land, and he wanted to get rid of it. He wanted to rent it out. So he said to Robert, Mapletoft, he said, I've got, I can't remember the quantity, let's say 10 acres of land.
Glebe land.
Glebe land, thank you very much. I've got 10 acres of glebe land, do you want to rent it off me? Yeah? He said, I don't know, sir, I'll go and talk to my wife. As if us fellows would. But that's what he said. He went back to talk to Sarah. Sarah Taylor was his wife. Had a word with her. She said, well, we can't afford the rent for a year, but we can afford to buy 2 sheep. So he went back to the vicar and he said, well, I'm sorry, vicar, he said, the land's well and truly overgrown. I'll take it off your hands next year, provided I can use it this year. Yeah, he negotiated that. They bought 2 sheep, and from that he started to build a farm. So the 2 gentlemen between them built up a farm of about 300 acres, effectively. And so they, if you like, dug themselves out of the poverty. That's my grandfather. He died, I think, 1941, so before Brian himself were thought of. Handsome looking bloke. They all say he looks like me. My dad was born in 1916, born on March the 19th, as it says there, and that's 3 weeks into the Battle of Verdun. My grandfather called him Verdun, his middle name Verdun, in honour of the French soldiers who were being slaughtered at the time on the Western Front. He didn't want to join the family farm, so he joined the RAF in 1932 as an aircraft apprentice. He was out in Egypt maintaining aircraft out there until 1938. Then he came back to England and learned to fly, and as Brian said in the introduction yesterday, he was in the Battle of France actually at the beginning of 1940. That photograph was taken at a place called Warmwell near Southampton in the south of England.
Yep, John William.
John William, yes, he's the son of Thomas.
Do you know where...
He was a farmer.
What was that then? Was that vines or what was it?
Grapes.
That's your grandfather?
Yes.
Alright. Now what's that place?
Oh, that's a place our brother bought, just down the road from us a bit. It wasn't particularly our place to begin with. But Jack used to do his shearing down there in that shearing shed. Oh, the rest, well, what is it, just wagon and farm equipment and stuff.
Top left-hand corner, that's one of your homesteads, yeah?
No, that was part of the shearing shed.
Oh, that was part of the shearing shed, was it?
Okay. Dad was John William Thomas. He was called after his both grandfathers, Richard Rowe and Thomas Mapletoft. And Mum was Helen Elizabeth Purdy, Nellie. That was in 1922.
Okay.
So this is the Dad's family, or our father's family. You can see their names there, John, Richard, Thomas. Annie, she became Mrs. Mackenzie. No, the next one is Florence.
Oh, right.
Leaning over a bit. She's Mrs. Davis. Then Doris, who became Mrs. White. Vera, who's Mrs. Miracle, and Arthur.
Oh, so we've got those two the wrong way round, sorry.
They have, yes.
Why, how did Florence get an MBE? Do you know?
Florence.
Was it they give out on New Year's Day?
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Yeah?
Okay.
Like order of
These are
Canada.
just
In order, okay. Thank you.
various members of our family.
Anybody else talking about Annie?
No, we won't go through them all. Now those are the only Mapletoft who can carry our name on. Up in the top left-hand corner, there's a boy who was in New Zealand. Owen Mapletoft he was. Came over for our reunion. And the boy on the right-hand side at the back is Jack. Jack's son, Peter. Now aren't they alike?
They are.
Yeah, and that was about three generations apart they were. And this is our brother Jack in the left-hand corner.
Is Jack 81 now?
Yeah, Jack, well, he'll be 82 soon.
Right.
Yes. And the next one is Ross Mapletoft. He's Trevor's son. Trevor's the next one. And the next is Ian. And then our brother Bruce.
Percy Mapletoft's mother and father-in-law.
Said, Lynette said it was Ida.
That's Ida and Ross Collins.
You see, we've got all this wrong, you see.
Percy's mother and father-in-law.
Blame Lynette, we've got to, where's Lynette?
Lynette is the daughter of my oldest daughter, Diane, my granddaughter. Sheila is Diane's daughter. That's Diane holding Sheila. That's myself rolling in right there. And that's Joan.
As a hippie.
As a hippie, holding Sheila up on her knees. Sheila is my first grandchild.
I think that's the last one.
And then, pardon? Yes. This is Joan's daughter, Angie, on the right, and Lynette, my cousin here, cousins.
Lynette is pregnant and due in November, and Angie, her baby is 12 days old today.
Now, this is the old house. You drove down this road today to get to Bill's place, which is around here. The old barn over here, the grain shed there. My gosh, this is the embryo transfer lab. This is the garage where Grandpa used to keep the car. And this is the old house where Grandpa and Grandma lived. I mentioned to you it started out as a 20 by 20 log cabin, and they built on it over the years, and it really became quite a large house by the time they were finished. And as children, we really had very fond memories of that house. So I thought you might find it interesting. Bill and Diana's house now is approximately here.
I'm just on where the potato patch is now.
What's that again now?
The garden is where the...
Oh, the potato patch now is right here. Yeah.
Got the three grannies?
I don't know if you warm up. Kayla, no, I don't want you to warm up.
Yeah. Almost. It's a nice city though. Not a city yet, but it's. You're 5,000 there yet? 5,000, 6,000. 6,000? Just about 6,000. Well, 4,500.